The story of my poem, A Firefighter's Dream, it goes back to 2010. There was a bunch of Australian firefighters heading over to America to join up with some firefighters from the US. Now doing this tour of duty run, which you can see on my shirt. And anyway, one of my mates in the Queensland Fire Service here, Leon Colbert, Colby asked me if I could write something for the tour of duty. Anyway, I thought it'd be a good idea to pay tribute to the 343 fallen firefighters of 9/11. So I went away and had a bottle of wine and just remembered back to that day, September 11th, 2001, the day that changed the world and the lives that we live. And so there's a lot of inspiration there, and that was where the verses of A Firefighter's Dream were written and then ultimately delivered to the Australian firefighters who were running on that tour of duty fundraiser. So once I'd written A Firefighter's Dream, well then I had to recite it, and so the opportunity was there. Before these guys, the tour of duty, were heading over to America, they had a launch in Sydney, I guess a send-off before they jumped on the plane. And I went down to Sydney and stood up there. I think Richard Wilkins was hosting the morning tea. John Howard was there, he was the patron of the tour of duty. And I recited Firefighter's Dream. They recorded it, they took it with them to America, and just before they went on their run they were at the Australian consulate in Los Angeles, and they played the poem to the audience there, which included the American firefighters. And Liam Flaherty was one of the FDNY boys in that audience. He heard the poem, he was inspired, and he rang me that night and asked this humble Australian poet if he would come to New York to recite it at the 9/11 ceremony that they have on September the 11th that year. That was 2010. So he didn't need to ask me twice. I booked my ticket straight away, headed to New York and recited A Firefighter's Dream at Ground Zero at their dusk ceremony on September the 11th, 2010. And it made an impact on the crowd there, so much so that they invited me back for the 10th anniversary in 2011. Reciting that poem, Firefighter's Dream, at Ground Zero on the night of September the 11th was just one of the most amazing experiences in my life. It's really hard to describe, actually. You struggle to find words. I think anybody who's been there would understand that there's an aura, a spiritual presence, maybe the ghosts that just ride over the place and make their presence felt, especially on a night like that, September 11th, and not only the firefighters but the families of the boys who were killed on that day. Something very, very humbling, I think, is the right word to describe it, and it was a great honour to do that. It's something I will never ever forget for the rest of my life. The signatures on the poster that's being auctioned tonight. Liam Flaherty, well, I've already mentioned Liam. He was the guy who rang me and asked me to head over to New York to recite the poem. Liam is now the captain of Rescue 2. This is probably one of the most prestigious firehouses in New York. There at Brooklyn. At the time, Liam, I think he'd swapped his shifts, and that's the difference between living and dying. So he was one of the first responders to the tragedy, September the 11th, 2001. He lost a lot of his good friends, so many colleagues, 343. It's hard to believe you could lose so many people in the blink of an eye in one industry. And that's just one section, you know, of the 2,000 odd people who were killed that day. Liam almost lived at the site, that's what they call it, Ground Zero, for the next 9 to 12 months after that, just digging through the rubble, first of all looking for the bodies of his mates, including his best friend, Bronco Pearsall. And then ultimately it was just trying to find any little piece of DNA so that the families could have something to bury. Liam is also the captain of the Emerald Society Pipe and Drum Band, so he plays the pipes, got a big set of lungs, the big dog, Liam Flaherty, and so not only you know, were they involved in the recovery mission, but the pipes were played at every one of the funerals and memorial services for you know, the fallen firefighters of 9/11. He's a very, very special human being, Liam Flaherty. The Dowdell brothers, James and Patrick Dowdell, lost their father, Kevin Dowdell, on September the 11th. Kevin was a mate of Liam's. James is the reason why I'm not there tonight, and I apologise. James is getting married in New York this weekend, so that's where I am at the moment, and I'm sure the boys send their regards. James went on to become a firefighter with the FDNY, following in his father's footsteps. His brother Patrick, who's also signed the poster, became a US Marine and did his tours of Afghanistan and Iraq to honour the legacy of his father. A couple of other boys on that poster, Johnny Nolan from ladder 133 at Queens these days. He was another responder to 9/11. I mean, they came from far and wide, firefighters across the country. He's a great man, Big Johnny Nolan. If you're ever in New York, look these guys up, they'll look after you. I tell you, they're very special human beings. And Stu Sprung from the San Diego Fire Department. First thing, you know, a lot of guys did around the country is jumped on a plane as soon as they could and got to New York to help their brothers, to help their comrades, their colleagues, their mates, to respond to a tragedy that rocked the world. Liam Flaherty, James and Patrick Dowdell, John Nolan, Stu Sprung have all signed their poster. They are human beings of the absolute highest quality.